Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Endless Celts Podcast. I hope you're all well who's listening. Tonight, I'm joined by John, Francis, Anthony, and Ross. How are you all?
Good, mate. Thanks.
Good, mate. Roller
All good,
coaster.
mate.
Get
Yeah,
in
all
there
good.
now.
I think we're all recovering after that match. This is recorded straight after the Alkmaar game where we lost 2-1, but we qualified 3-2 for the Europa League group stages, and I think we're all pretty buzzing about that. But in the game itself, I mean, we kind of the two goals were suspect. Joe Hart made a mistake, and Carl Starfelt took his eye off the ball and hit the ball hit his heel and coincidentally went in the back of the net. But it just looks like a shambles all round defensively at the moment. I mean, for me, in my opinion, I think this game showed the level we are at in a defensive side of thing in the squad. I mean, Ralston didn't look how he looked the previous games. Greg Taylor got took off, unfortunately, with a shoulder injury. Hope it's not too serious. Starfelt again for me, he's suspect. He doesn't look composed. He doesn't look relaxed. He just always looks like he's panicking. And Welsh, to be fair, played okay. A couple of major blocks that he made. I think in the start of the second half, he blocked 3 chances in a row, which was fantastic. And Montgomery, who came on to replace Taylor, played a good game as well. But come to yourself, Anthony, first. What was your opinion of the game?
Well, I'm just about getting my breath back, Stephen, and it's nothing to do with my positive COVID case. It was a bit of a stressful night, to say the least. But listen, I think we got off to the absolute perfect start, and we thought, here's a chance we could really go and play. But I think there's just, it's the old saying, goals change games. But not only with the fact that we concede quite early on, straight after going in front, but obviously the injury to Taylor really kind of changed the sort of flow and sort of psychology of the game as well. All of those sort of incidents happening quite quickly after going ahead, and it kind of brought the sort of bad habits back into our play. It's two horrendous and individual errors that have cost 2 goals and to give them real impetus to get back in the game. And we really, were on the back foot for large parts of the match. But having said that, I do think you do have to give some credit where it's due. I think including some of the players who made errors during those moments did rally, and I think they did sort of, they really put in some brave to it. I mean, I thought Adam Montgomery especially was he had a real good game when he came on. I think that the two centre halves, yes, I think Starfelt had a few hairy moments, I must admit, but I do think after the mistakes, and Joe Hart as well, he had a couple of fantastic stops. So that takes bravery, that takes a bit of courage. I think our fight, funnily enough, I actually think our decision making in the final third left a wee bit to be desired. I was getting awfully frustrated as the game was going on. It just, with a lot of chances to play a pass wide right or wide left, and we were trying to be too cute through the middle. But taking all that into account, the long and short of it is, it doesn't really matter how you get there as long as you do. And the fact remains, as well as AZ played and as well as they sort of rallied and tried to bring it back, and you've got to give them credit for that, they're in the conference draw tomorrow and we're in the Europa League draw, and that's really all you can say about it. So delighted that although tonight's ended in a defeat, but we go through with an aggregate victory. The Ange Express rolls on.
Yeah, I mean, granted as well, it's a fantastic achievement. I mean, we all wanted the Champions League, but again, we were realistic about that. Kind of let that go. And the Europa League group stage is a fantastic achievement for this team, from what we were to what we are now and what we could become in the future. But come to yourself, John. I think Anthony made a great point in terms of the attacking play as well. There was a couple of moments, as Anthony said there, Christie could have played it left, it could have been played right to Abada. And the people, I say Adaba, but I'm correcting that tonight. But I think, looking at it, from my point of view, defensively, we were bad. I'll be honest about that. Going forward, as Anthony said, there was a bit lack of decision making. What did you take away from that game? Do you think that was like the level we need to aspire to? I know we beat Alkmaar in the previous leg, but tonight we put ourselves under the cosh, and to be honest, it was back to the old Celtic way where we were just panicking throughout that game. I thought anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony pretty much summed it up. But for me, it does sort of show where we sort of are at the moment, and defensively it's still an issue. And I know that I mean, we were chatting about it throughout the course of the game as well, but we should be looking at getting another centre half in. It's certainly still an area I think that we need strengthening. It's a matter of days now before the window shuts, so it's highly unlikely, given that we're now coming into the weekend, that that's probably going to happen. But what tonight did show for me is that the defensive side of things is still a bit off the mark. Attacking wise, we know how good we can be. We just seem to be on the back foot for most of the game, as Anthony said. There was 2 absolutely shocking defensive errors. I don't think it's just Hart was to blame for the first goal. I think Welsh was kind of caught ball watching as well, and it should have been more aware of where his man was. I don't know what the hell Starfelt was trying to do at pirouetting like that when he should have just been trying to get rid of it. But these things happen, and like I said, we were lucky enough that we got the early goal in the game, and that we had the 2-goal lead for the first leg. As I say, we're the ones now going into the Europa League game tomorrow, but the level of competition we're going to be facing in the Europa League is probably going to be above Alkmaar. So we need to make sure that we sort of those defensive sort of issues still need to be sort of stifled. But as Anthony also says, I mean, barring those errors, we weathered the storm relatively well. There was a lot of brave tackles. The guys, even for their mistakes, still done what they needed to do at times when it was required of them. Hart made some incredible saves as well when it was needed. And I think, although no our best performance, especially in recent games, it's certainly, you can still see that it's a progressive thing, and we're still sort of finding our feet in that respect. But I think that we've still got a ways to go. I will say though, I don't know whether you guys agree, but for me, the worst player on the park in a Celtic jersey tonight was Christie, for me. And I don't know what he just looked like the same player we had last season the night, and that was a bit worrying.
I have to be honest with you. I thought Christie looked a bit more greedy than he was in previous games. It looked like he was playing not for himself, but as Anthony alluded to, there was times he had the ball, he could have played the likes of Montgomery and down the left or Abada down the right, and he didn't take that opportunity. So I'm actually kind of thinking you brought that up, because I was going to say it, but I didn't know how you guys would react to it after all his performances. But coming to yourself, Francis, in regards to the keeper, Joe Hart, I wonder what people would have said if Barkas made that mistake. What do you think would have happened? The word would have just ended, wouldn't it?
You are having a laugh.
I'm just saying. But Francis, what was your take from the game?
Well, to answer your question, everybody would have been
Don't answer
on
the question.
on Barkas's case, but then Barkas was making these maybe not as blatant errors, but Barkas was making errors every game he played. This is Joe Hart's first real error, massive error that's led to a goal. But you could then say Stephen Welsh should have dealt with a header. He should have maybe headed it, but again, as I say, Joe Hart, he sees it all the way, so he should, after Stephen Welsh makes the error, Joe Hart should then clear it. And by all accounts, everybody has slated Joe Hart for the error, so you can't say we're letting him off lightly. But then he recovers from that to make big saves and punches the ball out, comes and tries to clear his lines and collect crosses. So I don't believe a Barkas or Bain has the courage to do that. He's stood up, he realised he's made a mistake, but he's not sort of went in his shell. He's tried to play through it, and by all accounts did, similar to Starfelt. I thought, for Starfelt, the own goal, I thought defensively he actually got himself into a good position to deal with the cross. He's seen it all the way and just took a big air swipe and totally missed the ball. And obviously it gets a wee bit unlucky and goes the goal. But when you swing a bit like that, you can't expect something like that to happen. But I felt actually second half he grew into the game a wee bit. He had a better game, and I actually think he's better when he's not got much time to think about it. He's better at defending as in this ball playing defender, which surprised me because I think his stats before he came here was pretty decent for a ball playing defender. But I actually think he's better just being an out and out defender, if you like. But yeah, there was Christie as well. I don't think he had his best game, but there's not many that were actually brilliant. Alkmaar, in fairness, didn't allow us to be good. We only really we struggled in the first half to really get a grip of the game after after the first goal. Thought that kind of knocked the stuffing out was a wee bit, and felt maybe we could have went a wee bit longer at times just to try and stretch the game, maybe play off the second ball. I know that's not Postecoglou's way, but sometimes you just need to change your style within the game, and then we obviously managed to get to half time in that, regrouped. For the first 5 minutes we didn't really got off to a great start, but I think for the next sort of 10-15 minutes we played well, and I think that was the spells were obviously in the final third where we had chances to play that extra pass that would have gave the other person the better chance of scoring, but guys were maybe taking the shot on early and stuff. So yeah, it was, I think as I say, it was Alkmaar are a better team, and we are still in early doors of this transition. It's just it has been really good up until sort of tonight, I feel like, but you will have these type of performances coming in there, and at the end of the day, I would rather have a performance like this and still end up in the Europa League. So all in all, I don't think you can really, I think the fact that we've qualified for the Europa League game, you'll get away with kind of tonight's performances, I feel like.
Yeah, I get what you mean, and you look at it as well, Francis. Obviously, in the game, like you said there, that Alkmaar didn't really give us a chance to be good or play the way we used to play we were used to playing under Postecoglou. What I noticed with their game was it was high press and intensity the full 90 minutes. I don't think Celtic are quite up to that fitness standard yet. I know they've only played 2 games, but what I mean by that is in terms of the whole 90 minutes we're pressing, we're attacking. We're not quite there yet. I know we've seen it in previous games in the SPL, but let's be honest, this is a bigger level in terms of what we will play in the SPL. That Alkmaar are by far the best team we've played this season, Ross. And touching upon the 2 goals we conceded, what I seen, and Francis made a great point, the first goal especially knocked the stuffing out of Celtic. It seemed like the heads went down a wee bit. They got a wee bit complacent with their play. Their passing wasn't crisp. Everything was kind of going to shit, basically. Do you think that's a wee bit of concern? Because last season we've seen that lots, especially under Neil Lennon, when we conceded a goal, the heads dropped. Do you think that's a concern that it's kind of still there a wee bit?
Well, it's definitely a concern but it's just, it seems to be the Celtic way away from home in Europe, no matter who the manager is or what the style of play is. If they lose a goal, the sort of panic sets in, and they just get put under real pressure, and they get nervous and they don't know how to deal with it. But I mean, that first goal just lets them back in. The tie's totally under control, and then there's just a culmination of a Welsh mistake and a Hart mistake, and it just puts us under real pressure. And then we as you say, we revert back into the Celtic way, just like nervousness. And don't get me wrong, there was nervousness there, but Alkmaar, you have to give them credit. The press that they played was similar to what we've been doing to teams in Scotland this season, and he's touched on it. Like that's the best team out with. Well, certainly in a competitive game, that's the best team we've played against this season. I would say that West Ham were a very good team that we played against in the friendlies. Obviously, we were a bit earlier in the line then, but I think that you have to credit Alkmaar for the way they pressed us tonight. But at the same time, you have to look at Celtic and say, well, and they said it in commentary umpteen times tonight. So although I'm sort of regurgitating what the guys have said on the commentary, you have to, I think Franny touched on it there as well, you have to sort of play the game as well. And although Celtic want to play the passing game and all the rest of it, you have to like go long sometimes. That playing it short all the time, it was playing into the Alkmaar hands. They wanted us to play like that. They'd set up for us to play like that, and they pressed us and they put us under pressure, and the defence was found wanting at times. And don't get me wrong, they were found wanting. 2 glaring mistakes that cost us goals, but in the context of the game, I thought we defended not well, slightly not desperately at times, but like we put bodies on the line, and you have to credit our defence for that. But there is you can see that we need help in there. For me, Starfelt, that everybody says he needs time and all the rest of it. I've seen enough now, to be honest with you. That I'm just like, I don't think, like personally, going forward, when Julian's fit, I think that Welsh is the choice before Starfelt. But I thought sort of he should have been on beforehand, but well before he was. But I thought that Edward made a difference. Certainly in the middle part of the second half, I thought he made a big difference. We were saying it in the chat. We needed him to come on and just sort of make things stick a bit and take the pressure off the defence. And I had said in previous podcasts that maybe going forward in European games against like better opposition, if you like, I thought that maybe an Ayeti or an Edward would be a better bet through the middle than Kyogo, and that's no slant on him, by the way, because he gets his goal tonight again early in the game. That drive and run links up with Abada again. But I just think when you're under pressure like that, and you know you're going to be under pressure like that before a ball's kicked, by the way, I just think an Edward, even a Yeti at a push, is a better option sort of through the middle, just get the ball up there. You don't need to play football all the time. Just get up there, get the guy to hod it in and bring guys into play and relieve the pressure, because that's what was needed in that first half, and we were really, really struggling. And even in the first 15 minutes until Edward was brought on, we were struggling again. And they did run out of steam a wee bit, but definitely, I think going forward against better opposition, we need an Edward or somebody of that ilk through the middle rather than Kyogo, but keep him on the park out wide for his pace.
Yeah, and I think it's in terms of obviously the target man thing. I think Postecoglou's made it clear in all his press conferences, and we've all praised him for it, that he wants to stick to the way he wants to play. But again, you can understand why you need to change things, because you've seen Alkmaar, they had us over the top countless times, and they were getting in, obviously because of our high line, and that's the way Postecoglou likes to play, that kind of system. And you can see where it's going to fall down in places, and it kind of obviously comes back to the whole thing, we need to score more than I do. But you touched upon Carl Starfelt there, Ross, and it's quite interesting. We spoke about this in the last podcast, and I seen a comment on one of the socials saying, what about these players who have started well? We're not kind of saying give them time, blah, 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 but the players who are bad, it's like give them time to settle in. Now, I'll come to yourself, John, first about Starfelt. In my opinion, I said it there at the start, he looks slow, he looks laboured, he looks uncomposed, he doesn't even look like he can play a pass properly. And at the moment, I'll be harsh and I'll say he doesn't justify the transfer fee we paid for him. Now, I did allude to the fact that he does command the area well in the box, but anything outside that, he's like Bambi on ice. Have you seen anything from him going forward that you can think he can settle in and be a player for us, like in terms of a star player? Or do you think he's going to be like a squad player when Julian comes back?
It's difficult to say, don't know. I mean, and I'll defend what I says a couple of episodes ago when I was pretty much made the exact same point. And it was on the back of that about giving him time, etc. This is a style that everybody within this team needs to get used to. And you're asking a lot of the defensive guys. Your left back and right back are being asked to move infield out of position and play with a high line. Your defenders are then having to cover the back. And that can be daunting for a defender. I suspect that it's something that Welsh is he's still adjusting. You seen the mistake tonight when they for their first goal, and Starfelt as well. Like, I mean, barring his mistake, there was a couple of moments where he kind of flapped a bit. But again, that seemed to happen when he's under pressure. He seems to be under pressure when they get the ball through, and he's having to defend and make decisions quickly because he's being pressed. That's something that he's either going to need to get over quickly and start dealing with, or it's something that he's no. It's still at very early days, and I still think he deserves time to adjust because, like I say, it's a completely new system, and all the guys in that team, and the night proved it, are still look a bit. I mean, it's all right when we're bigging the team up and the way we're playing when we're playing a St Mirren or whoever at Ross County, or all these kind of teams, and you're like, right, okay, Dundee, St Mirren, it's like we're scoring barrel of the goals, and when we come up against these other teams, you're not going to get away with that against higher level opposition. And you seen the night that not just Starfelt, by the way, a lot of players were found wanting and looked a bit shaky when they were pressed. So I think it's hard. What's the word I'm looking for? I think it's unfair to be so critical of Starfelt at the minute, because, like I says, everybody's still need to adjust to this style of football. And as I said before, you made a very good point about somebody mentioning it on the socials. For all the other guys that have been playing well, you're not pointing out any of their mistakes because they're doing things right. But we're very quick and to jump on somebody when they make one mistake. I saw somebody after that first goal.
Made 5 mistakes.
Right, but he also made about 5 good tackles. The point I'm trying to make is it's easy as a fan to focus on the errors. As I said, I saw somebody, like I was just flicking through Facebook after the first goal, and I saw one Celtic fan calling for Joe Hart to pack his bags and get out. Like but this is what I mean. This is how fickle it is for fans. We are as Celtic. We demand the absolute best for our players, and we expect the player when they play for Celtic to be playing for the jersey. We expect so much for them. We expect them to hit the ground running, and we expect them to be living up to their transfer fee or whatever the case may be, whatever status they come in with right off the bat. Nobody's taking into consideration about the new environment, the new country, the new style of football, the fact that it's still very early days and against a much higher level of competition, and they're just saying he made a mistake, he should go. And I think that's extremely harsh. I think that's unfair. If let's just say Starfelt continues to make mistakes like that against Ross County, Livingston, and he's doing it regularly in the SPL against much lower level opposition, then you can. Well, he's not really, like I said, for large portions.
He's gave away a penalty and all that.
For large portions of the games, he's been better than he has been worse.
I agree that he's done well defensively, like defending his box and stuff, but he's cost. And by the way, I'm not saying that he'll no day for Celtic, no at all. But I'm sort of countering what you're saying. He's made glaring mistakes that have cost us maybe. What has he played? 6 or 7 appearances, and he's made 5 glaring either goal scoring opportunities or goals scored against us.
And I'm not saying they should be completely ignored, by the way, but
no, I know. I'm just saying you can't ignore that. But he has done good defensively as well. But as far as
a lot of positives for me,
I agree with Franny though. As a ball playing centre half, I don't know, man. He played a lot of passes that went behind Welsh and put him under pressure the night for no reason. And I was just like, just play on his feet, man. Just
keep play on heart.
Give the young but give the young guy a chance. You're supposed to be the senior player here, and you're putting the man under pressure. It's no glaring mistakes. It's passing that's like across the back line. It's for me as well. That's annoying me.
No, I get that. Can I also just say then? I mean, I'm going to use Kalmak as an example here, right? He made quite a few wayward passes tonight as well, and for me, he didn't have a particularly great game. And as your captain, when we needed it, you needed your captain to be stepping in there, try to G his players up and try to get them settled. And he was non-existent for me tonight. Does that mean that we're jumping and saying he made a few mistakes, etc.? I mean, we're guilty then. No, but what I'm saying is that if we're going to be pointing at mistakes, then we need to be consistent.
I think the Kalmag thing, the Starfelt's a drastic kind of thing to bring up there. But
I'm not comparing the back. No. Wait. See, before you get into it, I'm not in any fucking way comparing the two's performances tonight. And as I said, I'm just using Kalmak as an example. As the captain, he's the guy you're expecting to lead the team, get them settled. Do you recall him at any point during that game? Did you see him at one point stopping getting these players, trying to talk to them, getting them settled? I didn't see any of that. Did he make mistakes tonight? He did. He made quite a few. He lost the ball quite a few times, which led to them getting the break on us when they were pressing us. So, I mean, what the point I'm making is, if you're going to be critical, right, okay, Starfelt made a stupid mistake, which led to a goal, right? I don't know what the hell he was doing. There was a couple of other issues where, like Ross pointed out, where his passing was a bit off, and you don't need that. You want to just play it to feet. But at the same time, he did a lot of things defensively tonight that were good, and you couldn't see there's a defender there. But I'm saying, if you're going to just point the finger, you need to point the finger at everybody in the team, because they all made mistakes tonight.
And I know, and I referred to it at the start of the show before we started recording as a shambles, and it was a shambles. But I genuinely thought I had my Facebook status set as private about the Joe Hart thing. Don't be letting that get out there, John, by the way, even though you said I'm only joking. But coming to yourself, Anthony, I think John made a great point in terms of the level of opposition and players were found wanting. I thought Ralston found his level. I thought he was terrible tonight. Starfelt, as we touched upon, he's shaky. He was terrible for me. And John's right. Cal McGregor didn't have his greatest game this season. Right up to Abada, he was kind of non-existent as well. Christie, do you think these players have a lot of improving to do if we're going to compete in the group stages, Anthony?
I think it's just been one of those nights. We spoke about it on Monday night, Stephen. 2-0 is actually probably the worst advantage you can take going over somewhere. I know they've got rid of the away goal rule now, but it is, which in a way can almost add to the issue. There was a lot of nervousness out there tonight. I think a lot of players perhaps overthinking things, maybe just delaying their pass a few seconds too late, or like we say, as Ross touched on as well, perhaps Starfelt playing the ball too far behind Welsh and putting the back four under sort of needless pressure. I don't think really any of them were terrible though. I think they, whilst they made poor decisions at certain points in the game, I do think, like I said at the start, I do think a lot of them rallied. I thought there was lots of sort of brave tackles, etc., being made. I just think the decision making on the night, given what was at stake, perhaps played a part. But yeah, definitely, I think but again, this team's going to improve. The group stage won't begin now for a few weeks. So that's another few weeks. I know that a lot of them will be going off on their international call-ups, but that's another few weeks down the line. I would imagine there will be undertaking in the transfer market these last couple of days. Ange Postecoglou sort of alluded to as much in the build-up to the game. So I would expect, like I say, of course, there's a lot of teams in the group that, or the tournament that could do us real damage if we don't learn the lessons of tonight. I totally agree with that. But by the same token, I think we are a right good side as well. And I think we'll cause a lot of problems for teams in the tournament as well. We've got a lot of different options that we can do, especially if Edward and Christie stay. If they're not moved on, Ross has touched on, the potential to perhaps play a Yeti away from home and things like that. So we've got a lot of options. And I'm just looking forward now for the draw to be made and see what's what going forward.
Well, when I say terrible, what I mean is, they were terrible in my opinion, but I think Ralston, he found his level. I think the ceiling for him was Alkmaar. He just looked out of it the whole game. Starfelt, as I said, and come to yourself, Ross. Obviously, there's another player, Tom Rozic. Now, the game passed him by, and the camera went to him in the 30th minute, and he looked knackered. He looked done in. Do you think playing continuous amount of games for Rozic is kind of putting him back a wee bit instead of dipping him in and out, or what do you think going forward they should do with him?
I don't think it's a continuous amount of games. I think that game the night with Alkmaar set up the way they played, it wasn't a game for Tom Rogic. It was a game because Tom Rogic is good for Celtic when they're dominating teams and they're on the front foot. That the night was a game for possibly a Sorrow. I know that what do you call him? McCarthy wasn't available tonight. Going forward, it might be a game for somebody like him. That game tonight wasn't for a Tom Rogic. Ange Postecoglou knows football better than me, but for me, that game tonight was a game to maybe play a Sorrow, to maybe play again, he wasn't available, but a McCarthy, but something like that, a bit more reserved. We can't go and dominate teams like that at their own park. With Tom Roberts at Dudley Park, he's a number 10, and he's very effective when we're dominating teams. But when we're not dominating teams, the game bypasses him, like you said. And I agree with you on Ralston to an extent, as to he was found wanting the night. That guy in the left hand side had to beaten him all night, and my heart was in my mouth a lot of the game. But I'm loath to criticise him totally because of what he's done for us so far at the start of the season, and I don't want to totally write him off. But I'm really glad that we've got Juranovic in, and if he can prove to be better than Ralston, then in you come and do a job for Celtic. But at the moment, Ralston is doing really well for Celtic, but tonight he was found wanting, and certainly I'm not saying that Juranovic is a better player than him, because I don't know that yet, but I'm glad that we've got somebody else in there, and we've got another option, because tonight he looked the Ralston. No, he old, that's harsh, but he was found wanting a lot tonight. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I don't think anybody could disagree with that.
No, can I just say something as well? Because I want to just touch on what you mentioned, Stephen, just when you came to Ross with that question, and this is something I'm interested to see what everybody thinks. Right? When you said there, Ross, about Ralston was found wanting, a lot of the guys tonight in that Celtic team looked half the pace. They were a yard off the pace. They were slow to move in a lot of instances. And one thing to consider, and this is entirely plausible as well, is fatigue. And was that starting to set in? Because you look at the way we've been playing and how relentlessly we've been pressing teams in Scotland, and then it's like you've come to that. You've just had a dominating game there at the weekend. You've come in to this game. The night is like fatigue is a thing. It's a genuine thing. It happens. Muscle fatigue is a thing. It's like, do you guys reckon that could have potentially, because see the more I think about it and the way how lethargic some of the guys looked, it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's the case.
Nah,
Not for me.
So
Not for
me.
We've played 7 games or something this season. Can I be claiming fatigue already?
You can, absolutely can.
Nah, I just think we came up against a good team. But
if you speak to any athlete,
how can you disagree? Like, you asked me a question, and I'll give you.
It's what you said. I'm disagreeing with you. See, if you don't agree that it's fatigue, that's fine. But see, to come at me with some shite like it's only 7 games into the season.
Oh, sorry, is it 8 games?
Bullshit.
Like,
no.
How many games
played? That's irrelevant.
Games is relevant. How is
irrelevant.
it? It's still irrelevant.
It is irrelevant.
If it's 20 odd games, 30 odd games, I would say, you've got an argument.
Fatigue can set in after 3 games, 4 games. If you're playing relentlessly, in the way we've been playing for 7 or 8 games, fatigue's extremely plausible, entirely plausible. And you speak to any sort of modern day athlete, I don't believe it is. People that don't even play to that.
I would think they're not used to that intensity, but fatigue, I don't know. Possibly, but for me, this early in the season, I think that's playing into the hand. The managers, when they say, "Oh, there's too many games and there's not enough turnaround," and no for me.
I mean, if Celtic are fatigued after 7 games, there's something wrong. I mean, it's been 7 games into a season. Granted, we're playing unbelievable football, high pressing and stuff, but I'm sure the sports science guys know more than us. And if they're fatigued, they would have been switched around or rotated, because we know Postecoglou isn't afraid to make changes. But coming to yourself, Francis, here, just obviously end this bit of the show, is there any other players that kind of stood out for yourself in terms of their performance or what they could have done better, or even looking back in hindsight, who would you have started to kind of supplement their high press?
I think obviously the benefit of hindsight could have maybe started like an Edward up front and put Bum Christian in the middle and Kyogo out like the first substitution he made. Well, the first tactical one, obviously the Taylor one was forced upon him, or like Ross touched on, maybe a Sorrow in there just to try and kind of sort of be a wee slightly more defensive and stuff. So yeah, benefit of hindsight, I would have maybe went with the type of decisions, but going the way we've been playing, you kind of couldn't argue with the starting lineup. It was the same team that played Alkmaar off the park for large spells of the game in the home leg and stuff. So I understood. I kind of didn't have an issue with that. I just feel like if we came up against a good team away from home in Europe who had a lot to play for similar to their seasons, a bit is maybe riding on that game, and that it's not going to make or break the season, but it's got to be good for confidence if you can make it into the Europa League. I just feel like we came up against a good team that was bang on it from the minute they kicked off and stuff, and they just didn't really give us no time on the ball. They pressed as well, and yeah, it was just, I think nearly every Celtic player struggled in the main just to deal with that high press. We just kind of got a bit of a taste of Roman, so yeah, I'm not reading too much into it in the terms of, like, I know, like, if I go back at it, like, I'm not reading too much into it, like, I don't think it is fatigue, it's and like what you pick out performances and stuff like that, individual players. I just think we came up against a good team the next time, and that'll not be the first time it'll happen this season.
Yep. I mean, I totally agree with you. And as Anthony said, it's two or so weeks to the Europa League group stage starts. So hopefully in between that time, we can strengthen the squad and get better with certain methods that possibly trying to get across. But what we're going to do now is turn our attentions to the Glasgow Derby game coming up on Sunday away from home. Now, our league form, cup form has been excellent. Obviously, we're going into this game on the back of a defeat. But on the other half of the city for Rangers, they've had some COVID outbreaks, some issues in regards to that. I still don't really know who's in, who's playing, who's out, who's affected by this. And to be honest, I haven't even really paying attention to it because it couldn't give two flying, you know what I mean? But coming to yourself, Ross here, now, about this game coming up, how you feeling towards it? It's the first one of the season. For me personally, I'm getting confident. I think we can do some damage. But in regards to the whole COVID thing, are you any clued up on who's out or who's in?
No, I'm not. And it's actually boiling my blood. That, like, there's not, I don't think there's one person in the media actually came at them and said, confirm who the cases are, why there was cases. I know it's a bit different for last season in terms of people being jabbed and all the rest of it, but like, surely somebody has. We were sitting there and we had to find out, like, who was the cases by who wasn't on the plane. Like, how are they not being asked to just divulge who it is, who it isn't? And we're still sitting here, like, after their tie the night, and we don't know who's going to be available for them going into Sunday, because Gary McAllister says, like, I don't know the exact quote, but there's ways around it, like, because of how things are now. So for me, I wouldn't be surprised that if they've got their full quotation available for Sunday. And for me, I didn't look into conspiracy theories and all the rest of it, but for me, it's just smacks a absolute bias for the media. And I'm not saying the referees are going to be like that, but it's absolutely appalling. The way that Celtic have been treated last season, regardless of how it is now and how it was then, to now how they're being treated by the media, by the way, nobody else but the media. The media ask the questions and they're not asking the questions, and that's the thing that annoys me. That's the thing.
Absolutely spot on. And by the way, Ross, it's not the first time either this year.
Aye.
Or the end of last year. Remember, there was a couple of house parties. There was people claimed that photos were circulating on our Twitter. Their names never came up. Their names, like, nothing. There was nothing ever said about it.
Aye. So, but I mean, it's glaring for me now. Like, certainly in a media aspect, I'm not saying anything about referees or on the playing field or that, but and from a media standpoint, it is absolutely unbelievable, the bias towards them against us. And I don't care what MD people can laugh at me, and, like, maybe there's the odd Rangers fan that'll listen to this and they'll laugh at me. I don't care. I'm saying it how it is, and it's there to see for everybody. But anyway, As regards the game, I was supremely confident going into it before the night's game. But the night's game, as we've all touched on, is showing sort of weaknesses. But I don't think Rangers are as good a team as Alkmaar were the night. I don't think they are.
No.
I think that Midtjylland weren't as good a team as what Alkmaar were. And I think if we met Midtjylland now, we would have wiped the floor with them. Excuse me. So I don't think Rangers have got the energy in their team to press us like Alkmaar did. So I think we can press them. And I'm confident that we can win that game on Sunday.
Yeah.
I think going forward we'll have too much for them. They won't be able to live with our movement. And I know they've had a good defensive record last season, and even in the last 2 European ties against Alish Kerr, I think it is, they've had 2 clean sheets. I don't know much about that team, but I just think that there's no way that Celtic are going to get Ibrox on Sunday and not score. So I think Rangers need to score 2 to beat us, but I think we'll score more than 1. So I'm confident going into Sunday.
Yeah, it's all the makings of a tasty derby game anyway coming up. But see, in regards to what you were saying there about obviously the COVID thing, and we've seen what happened when Celtic went to Dubai, and we all agreed that they shouldn't have done it. I mean, but Julian was deemed close contacts of everyone in the Celtic squad, and they all had to isolate for like 2 weeks and all this. And you see it, and it is biased. I'll call it out too, Ross. I can see it. Everyone can see it in the media. Don't question certain clubs about their COVID regulations or COVID issues, and you look at it, Francis, as well, and it's a bit like, why is one club being held to account over something and the other club isn't? And it's just it's madness. And you go into the game on Sunday, and as Ross said, you still don't have a clue who's available or who's not, and you have their coach coming out saying there's ways around it. It's pure madness, isn't it?
Oh, it is madness, and like you said, I don't want to go down the conspiracy route or anything like that, but I find it interesting that Rangers never had one positive case in last season. The only team in Britain not to have a positive case, apart from Hillander, that was from when he was in international duty. Then UEFA bring in compulsory, like UEFA do the testing for their competitions, and suddenly they've got an outbreak. But we don't actually know who's tested positive and who's the close contact. So I just, like you said, I don't know why the media aren't even just ask the question. Rangers, whoever's been put forward from Rangers, don't need to answer that question, but just at least ask it. At least that's because I mean, Anthony might be able to tell us better, but I think the way they get round it, I think with the way the rules are, if you're deemed as a close contact, if you return a negative PCR test, I think that allows you to then play in the next up and coming game. Obviously, if you're the one that's got the virus, you'll still be isolating for the 10 or 14 days, whatever it is. But I think that's how they can get guys back. But as we don't know who or how many have actually tested positive, we don't know who is actually deemed as, we don't know who's close contact. So, I mean, it's just here a wee note, just when you were talking, the names that I know weren't there were Gerrard, McGregor, McLaughlin, Tavernier, Kent, Bassey, Scott Wright are all went on that flight. Now, is one of them or all of them tested positive? One of them's got to have tested positive, but which one is it? That's probably we'll probably get told it was McLaughlin because he's the second choice goalkeeper, and then everybody else will be a close contact and they can make
Guaranteed.
Lundstrom and Roof also went on the flight, but that was actually they were suspended, so that's possibly why they weren't there. But I wouldn't be surprised if, I think we've just got to prepare for every one of the players being available for Sunday, then just take it from there. So I don't know the legalities if you need to disclose who was tested positive. I really don't know. I'm assuming you don't if it's not been brought up. But going into the game and stuff, I think I'm confident going into it. Just simply, I don't see us not scoring going into any game. Even tonight, coming against a good team, we actually still scored. The amount of chances we create, we might not create the 30 odd that we've been doing, but I still believe we'll create a lot of chances. And you've seen Kyogo, he's clinical. Abada, although he seems to hit the worst shot in history, still seems to score goals. And then I can't see us not scoring. Granted, obviously defensively we still look a wee bit shaky, and maybe Rangers will expose that. But a lot will come down to, I don't know. I know we shouldn't really look into the Rangers team, but you'll need to look like their game tonight. The fact that they need to travel back from Armenia maybe have an impact. How many, if any, of these players are going to make it? Because if McGregor or McLaughlin don't play, that's your number one and number two keeper not there. If Gerrard's not there, it's a big thing. Tavernier, by all accounts, has not had a great start. It's still their captain not there. Ryan Kent's another one that's not had a great start, but he seems to always play well against Rangers. So if they're missing the types of players, it should be a big boost. It should give the players a boost to go, look, they're missing some key players. They'll still be able to put out a relatively strong squad. But yeah, I think the way we're playing, we've got to have some level of confidence going into the game. But also, like Ross just touched on as well, the fact that Alkmaar showed that if you press us, there is weaknesses there. But also, like Ross said, I don't think Rangers are as fit a team as Alkmaar. So I believe we'll create chances, and I can't see us not scoring in any game. So I was a lot, like Ross, I was a lot more confident than I was after seeing the night's game. But maybe ask me that question again on Saturday, just when the dust maybe settled for the night's performance, and I might be slightly more confident.
That's fair enough. And as you may have heard at the start of the show there, our show regular Anthony has been tested positive for COVID, and we all wishing you well, buddy. All wishing you a great recovery from that. But coming to yourself, Anthony, in regards to the whole build up to this Derby game, on the back of this defeat in Europe, all their issues with COVID, and as the guys are saying, it's like, what is going on there? Because nobody knows. No one has the questions or answers. And when Celtic were involved in that type of situation, everything had to be printed. Who was involved? What players were left out? It was everywhere. And in regards to the game itself, how are you feeling into it?
Going into the match, I don't sort of. I mean, obviously they'll have the home advantage, full crowd, which will obviously give them a big lift going into it. But at the end of I think Ange Postecoglou has drummed into this team almost like a tunnel vision and block everything else out and go and do our business on the park. I think. Of course, you've got to have levels of respect in terms of, we know that they do have attacking threats on the pitch. I think we have to be sort of humble enough to appreciate that. But by the same point, if you look at our team, I think it's stronger, even in defence. I think going at the back, provided we stick to our guns and don't allow the mistakes that happened tonight to happen, I think we're more than capable of nulling their threats. And as we've said several times over the last few weeks, in terms of going forward, we have such a range of attacking options that even if how we start the game isn't working, we've got options that we can change it about. I never like to be acting like Conor McGregor before a game against Rangers, because as we've seen so often recently with Conor McGregor, funnily enough, that's you very much can very easily end up with egg on your face. To answer, am I confident for going to the game? I'm as confident as I could ever expect to be going into a game at Ibrox. I think we're more than capable. If somebody was to, put me to sleep tonight and I didn't wake up till Monday and I woke up and was told that Celtic won the game, it would not come as a shock or a surprise. I think we are more than and doing the business. In terms of the build-up, Stephen, yeah, I mean, it's been the latest in a long line of complete nonsense from, like you say, the lack of scrutiny from our fourth estate, and a football club that has consistently treated this pandemic as if it's beneath them, quite frankly. Funnily enough, like as Ross was sort of saying in the group chat about the media not asking the questions, our friend of the show, Mr. James P, did ask the question, as did one of the other prominent bloggers, Phil Mack. He actually, as a journalist in Ireland, points the question to UEFA in terms of the Armenian authorities, what their sort of rules were with COVID compared to ours. Now, Francis, you were actually correct, provided you are a close contact, but if you have a negative PCR result, you would be eligible to play in the game. But we can't dispute that, and we don't. But like we said, we don't know who's even tested positive yet in this Rangers team. Nobody's asking the question. And sorry, just to finish what I was saying there about James and Phil, there is what they found out was there is no sort of way of auditing whether or not a club is essentially doing their testing protocols properly. They basically say that James asked the question to the authorities, and he put it up on his findings yesterday. I would urge everyone to read the article. Basically, the response they got was one of shock, as if to say, well, why would any club mislead the governing bodies on how their testing results do? So they're essentially relying on the good nature of these football clubs to be honest about them, about how they're going about their testing protocols. So, let's just say that's interesting. That when for a full season, like Stephen as we've alluded to, that they didn't have one positive case, despite the fact, Scott Arfield must be the only football player in history whose own teammates didn't turn up to his own birthday party. But let's just say it's interesting that the minute they have a fly out a match in a country where it's very, very strict protocols, that there's suddenly a bit of an outbreak. All I'll say is it's interesting. But Ange will have all that blocked out. We'll be prepping for a full strength team. We can go and do the business. I'm very confident of that.
Definitely, man. Definitely agree with everything you said there. What about yourself, John, in terms of obviously what the guys were saying there in regards to all the build-up, the issues around COVID, the regulations, non-scrutiny of certain things, and then obviously on the back of the feet, are you confident going into the game that we can kind of take it to them?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all the guys there in regards to the whole COVID thing. I fully back what Ross and that was saying, what you guys are saying. The lack of clarity for the club itself, because I feel like any club where there's an outbreak, they've a duty of care to every other club within Scotland to ensure that there's full disclosure about any players that have contracted it, and those individuals should be named right off the bat. In terms of media scrutiny, I'm not going to say much about the media. You know how I feel about the media, and it doesn't at all surprise me, so I'll move on for that. In terms of the confidence going into the game, yeah, I mean, I'm as confident as I can be. I'm fully expecting them to field the strongest team possible against us. I don't want any excuses when we scud them. As far as I'm concerned, I think what Rangers fans especially, maybe not the club at large, but fans especially, at the start of the season when we hired Ange, were laughing and making jokes. We've all seen the posts with Rangers fans that we know, and I think they weren't expecting what's happened to us in terms of the turnaround. Rangers haven't really progressed or improved much for last year. If anything, they've regressed. When they played us during games last year, we didn't win any of them, but they were very fortunate to win some. And I thought that as shite as we were last season, we still took the game to them. And I think they're in for a fright come Sunday, because it's a completely different animal they're up against. I don't think they're going to be expecting or be able to handle or know how to deal with the pressing. I fully expect them to be trying to kick lumps out of Kyogo, because they're not going to be able to stop him. I think he's just going to give the boys fits. And as you said, I think that Ange's mantra will score more is definitely going to be in play, and I think we're definitely in line for scoring at least 2 or 3, and I can't see them scoring 4. So I'm confident that we'll come away. We might concede when they surprise me, but despite the performance tonight, if everybody's got the heat screwed on and they show up and we play like we've been playing, then it could be potentially embarrassing for them.
I hope so. And on Francis's big yawn now, we'll do some score predictions.
I got caught out there.
Coming to yourself, John, first. Your score predictions and your goal scorers.
I'm going to go 3-1. I think that Ange is probably going to start Kyogo and Eddie, so I'm going to get the 2 on the score sheet. 2 for Kyogo, Edward for 1, and I think it's going to be 3-1. let's just say though, that's on the premise that they've got the full strongest team possible. If they play the same team they played against Alistair that night, we're scoring 6.
Oof.
Oh.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Francis?
I've got the same scoreline, and I actually wrote out a team, but clearly you're not caring about that. But I've went for my goal scorers, Edward, Kyogo and Abada, because I think they'll start the three up front.
No problem. And yourself, Anthony?
I'm going to go confident, Stephen. I'll say 3-1 Celtic. I'll take 2 for Kyogo, and why no? I'm going to go for 1 for the captain as well on his first game at Ibrox as captain. I'll say McGregor will get the 3rd.
So far, we've all had 3-1 here predicted. What about yourself, Ross? Anything different?
I was going to say 3-1.
Well, say it then.
He's got to pretend I wasn't going to. No, I think 3-1 as well. And I'm going to go the same as Franny, Edward, Abada and Kyogo, the front 3. Booming them out.
I got to go 3-1 as well. So
But when they get to the bookies.
the whole
Yeah.
thing 3-1. Gonna go
Five.
Kyogo to get 2 and Turnbull to get the other 1. And guys, that brings us to the end of the show. Obviously, this is recorded straight after the Alkmaar game, so it's technically our match reaction and looking ahead to the Glasgow Derby on Sunday. Have you enjoyed this one?
Yeah, it's been good.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's a sort of match reaction, as I say. Looking forward to the group stage draw tomorrow. I'll be watching that from my home since I'm, still self-isolating. I'll try and get my BT Sport app to work. And then, buzzing for Sunday.
Yeah. And again,
I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And honestly, I think that we're the 14th best Celtic podcast on the market.
The what? The 14th?
Easy, man. I'm not too confident, but we're definitely in the top 14. You can't argue with that.
I'm
How many is there?
confident
15?
I don't know. Just put a number out there.
Well, again, Anthony, we all wish you a speedy recovery and stuff from your your positive COVID test.
Thanks,
and
man.
we all wish. And to everyone who's listening, till we speak again, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.